Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Last time we finished talking about the place of articulation, and as we said earlier, that the place of articulation tells us where the sounds are articulated or made, and while manner of articulation, on the other hand, tells us how the sounds are articulated, how the sounds are articulated. So, place of articulation is where, and manner of articulation is how. So when we are talking about how the sound is made, so we have to think about the group of sounds that are produced in a certain manner. So the first group of sounds for us here today are known as stop sounds, or the stops. Stop sounds. In stop sounds, we have the group ep, eb, et, ed, ek, egg. All of those sounds are known as stop sounds or plosives, whether stop or plosives. We can use either term here. It makes no difference for you. Now the sounds that are produced are known as stops require two main things. Blocking of the air, closing or shutting off the nasal cavity and the oral cavity, closing, so preventing air from escaping from the mouth or the nose for a short time, and then allowing air to escape directly, okay, and suddenly from the mouth, from the oral cavity. So all the stops in English are oral sounds. So the nasal cavity is closed and air comes only from the mouth after a brief closure of the oral cavity, like it. So so if you pay attention to that, you say the sound slowly, you will feel that you prevent air from escaping, whether from the nasal cavity or from the oral cavity, and in this case and then it is followed by abrupt opening of the articulator, so you allow air to explode, to go out from the oral cavity. So a sound, for example, like the ek sound is then we can describe it as voiceless, or the name of the sound, voiceless, and then the place of articulation. Usually when we give the name for sounds, we start with the voicing. So whether the sound is voiced or voiceless. So ek is voiceless, and according to place of articulation, ek is velar, and according to manner of articulation, ek is stop. So the name of this sound, or we describe the sound, okay, by using three terms. So this is one of the questions that you might face in your exams. Okay, what is the voiceless velar stop? What is the voiceless velar stop? Is it ek or egg? Okay, and of course you have to choose ek, or to write ek, depending on the question. Okay, so or you could be asked, okay, can you describe the following sounds? Can you describe the following sounds? For example, it sound. So if you were asked to write a description for the it sound, you would say that it is voiceless, according to voicing طبعا. According to place of articulation, it is alveolar, and according to manner of articulation, it is a stop. So voiced alveolar stop, the voiceless alveolar stop, which is it. Voiceless alveolar stop is it. The voiced alveolar stop, on the other hand, is ed. So the difference between it and ed is in voicing. So this one is voiced alveolar stop. Voiced alveolar stop. So this is the first group of sounds. Again, the stops. If we have to describe, we need to describe a sound as a stop, we should know what is meant by a stop. A stop sound is the sound that requires closing the nasal cavity, okay, and closing the oral cavity at the same time, and then allowing the air to escape at once from the oral cavity. So It is just closing the nasal and the oral cavity, then allowing air to escape from the oral cavity abruptly or suddenly, okay, or with explosion, like for example when you produce ek, ed, eb, okay, etc. So all of them, we have a brief closure of the oral and nasal cavity, and then air comes out from the oral cavity. This is for the stops. The second set of sounds are known as the fricatives. Are known as the fricative sounds. Fricative sounds, and in fricatives, okay, we need to close the nasal cavity, of course. We need to close the nasal cavity, of course, and then we have to make whether a light closure, or a narrow gap, Now, a light closure, like when you produce F or ev, F, ev, F, ev. So, an F, eth, and eth, okay, your tongue in F and eth is in between the teeth, while for F and F, we have the lower lip contacting the upper front teeth. So there is a contact, but air can escape. Air can escape from the oral cavity. The other sounds like S, ish, ish, and what else? S, okay, S, ish, ish, as. All of those sounds are known as or require narrowing, and how, of course, require narrowing, تضييق يعني, narrowing of the articulators. So, in shh, your tongue does not touch the hard palate. It does not touch the alveolar ridge, but it gets very close to the alveolar ridge and the hard palate. And then you direct the air. You have a stream of air, a puff of air, okay, a long puff of air, okay, and in this case it is accompanied by friction noise. And once the sound is accompanied by friction noise, then it is known as fricative. So one of the fricatives. Okay, so S, for example, or F, for example, F sound is known as voiceless, and according to place of articulation, it is dental, and according to manner of articulation, it is fricative. مكتوبة تحت fricative. Eth, on the other hand, in eth, it is the same as eth, but it is voiced rather than voiceless. So we have the F, ev, eth, ev, s, es, ish, ish, and ha. Those are known as fricatives. Those sounds are known as fricatives. Later on, we'll write the names of all of those sounds later on, but just to get a background about them. So, again, which sounds can be fricatives? The sounds that can be fricatives are the sounds in which there is a full closure in the nasal cavity and a narrowing or a light closure in the oral cavity, followed by friction noise, followed by friction or accompanied by friction noise. So when we get friction noise accompanied with the production of the sound, then that sound is fricative. Then the sound is fricative. So, and in English we have fa, va, tha, tha, sa, za, sha, ja, and ha. Those are known as fricatives. Let's move on. The third manner of articulation, according to the manner of articulation, the third manner of articulation is known as affricates. Now, affricates is the production of the sound. The production of sound requires a combination of closing the nasal and the oral cavity, and then followed by a narrow opening for the production of the sound. So in English, we have two sounds that could be identified as affricates. Namely, they are the H and the edge. H and the edge. If you pronounce these two sounds slowly, you will feel that when pronouncing H, for example, at the beginning, you close the nasal cavity and you close the oral cavity. You close the oral cavity. H, and then it is followed by a narrow opening accompanied by friction. A narrow opening followed by friction. So affricates usually combines, or an affricate sound combines the way in which we get stops and the way in which we get fricatives. So we have two sounds. So edge, for example, is voiced, alveopalatal or palatal if you want, palatal and affricate. Affricate. So voiced, palatal, affricate. While H, on the other hand, is the same with one exception, which is H is voiceless. Voiceless palatal affricate, or alveopalatal affricate if you want. The fourth type, on the other hand, the fourth type is the nasal sounds. Nasal sounds. And in nasal sounds, it means that during the production of the sound, we need air to come out from the nasal cavity. And the sounds that are produced by closing the oral cavity and opening the nasal cavity are the M, N, and N in English. M, N, and N. Now, for example, take the M. You close the oral cavity. How do we close the oral cavity? We close the oral cavity by using the two lips, the upper and lower lip, So but we still have air. The air comes out from the nasal cavity. So if you need to describe the M, we would say that M is voiced, place of articulation, then it is bilabial. And manner of articulation, how it is nasal. Nasal sound. So we again for nasals, what do we need? We need a closed oral cavity. So you close it. For M, we close it by using the two lips. For N, we close it by using the front of the tongue with the alveolar ridge. For N, we close it by using the back of the tongue with the velum. And then we need the velum to be lowered. What do we mean by the velum to be lowered? It means that the nasal cavity should be open. Okay. Then any sound that is produced in a way or another like this, which got a complete oral closure and an open nasal cavity, is known as a nasal sound. And in English, we get three nasal sounds, which are M, N, and N. The other set of sounds are known as liquids. Now, in liquids, the sounds that are produced in this way are known as the R, or are the L and R. These two sounds are the liquid sounds. Now, the L is known as lateral sound. Recall when we described the imaginary parts of the tongue, we said that we get the rims, and the rims are very important in the production of some speech sounds. One of them, or the typical one for them, is the L sound, in which the front of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge, and the rims, or the rims of the tongue are lower. So air comes out from the lateral sides of the mouth. So this is the way in which L is produced. R in the other way, or R in the other way, is in the same place of articulation. The R in English is a little bit different from that in Arabic, because we have different R's actually. We have the trill R, like the Arabic one, okay, but the English one, the proper one that is most used, is known as R sound. R sound. And R sound in this way requires that the front of the tongue gets very close to the alveolar ridge. But it is curled back. Curled معناها معكوف يعني. Curled back, and it does not touch anything. So air comes out from the touching the front of the tongue, okay, and then goes out, and in this case we get the R. So the L sound is described as voiced, alveolar, liquid. And the R as well, it is voiced, alveolar, liquid. So how to distinguish between them? We can add, or you have to add, before liquid, just write the word lateral. Okay, just to make it easier for you. Voiced, alveolar, lateral, liquid. Voiced, alveolar, lateral, liquid. And in this way, we can distinguish between the L and the R. The last set of the sounds, according to manner of articulation, are known as the glides. And in the glides means a kind of movement, gliding movement. Okay, so in the production of these sounds, in the production of the A and O, yeah and wa, as in you and we. Okay, the sounds glides from the position of the vowel E and wa, E and O, So E for the y and O for the wa sound. So sometimes we call them semi-vowels, and we'll explain that later. Why do we call them semi-vowels? But wa and ya are known as the glides in English, and wa is voiced, and it is bilabial because we use the two lips to produce it, bilabial, and it is a glide. And yeah, on the other hand, is voiced, palatal, glide. Voiced, palatal, glide. Now, just for your own knowledge, the glides and the liquids, sometimes are known as or termed approximants. They are called approximants, but it makes no difference since we can describe them using the three terms that we have learned, which is voicing, place of articulation, and manner of articulation. Now, we have to end this class here. Next class, okay, we'll write the names for each single sounds that we have learned so far. Thank you very much, and see you then.